My brother is holding a 14-year grudge, and I don't think it can be fixed.
That's literally a teenager.
That's a whole teenager.
Fix it.
This is going to be a long one, even for Reddit standards. I, 23 female, am the youngest in my immediate family. I have 2 older brothers, 25 male and 27 male, and my parents, 55 male and 54 female. To make this easier for everyone involved, I'll call my oldest brother Andy and the younger one Ed. By the way, this comes from user MadBroThrowaway2 on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So, Andy has nearly a decade and a half grudge against most of our family for something that happened around 14 years ago. It's gotten so bad that he limits contact with our parents, a lot of uncles and aunts, some cousins, and nearly didn't invite them to his wedding a year back. In 2010, a lot of our family set up a vacation trip abroad to the United States. Pretty much everyone was stoked to go since we were going to Florida during the holiday season from my country. Since we were all under 16 at the time, we had to get travel passports and applied months before the trip. Eventually, all the prepping was finished and we were just waiting for our passports, which took some time to process through, but eventually we got them in person by visiting Home Affairs. The problem started when Andy's application had somehow gotten lost during the process, and the only option at that point was to restart the process entirely for him. This was incredibly rare and no one knew how this happened. The paperwork just vanished. But we were already less than a month out of actually heading out for the trip. No other options to get this right. So our family had 2 options. We either cancel the entire thing and probably lose some money and whatever time we invested in this, or we go and do it without him, but leave him with his aunt who was pregnant with her first kid and would be staying in our home country with her husband. The family chose to go anyways, since everyone was really looking forward to it and the kids involved would be heartbroken if we all just up and canceled at the last minute. Andy's happiness and excitement for the trip did a complete 180 into him being bitter and angry about it, which is, you're all under the age of 16? Totally fair. Our parents, aunts, and uncles and grandparents really tried to explain that it wasn't personal and was a complete accident and that they'd make it up to him in the future, but he was having none of it. See, I would have had that. I would have been like, make it up to me in the future? Bet. Let's do that. He pretty much stopped talking to everyone and we all eventually left for the 2-week trip. Our parents gave our aunt extra money to spoil him and take him out during the 2 weeks to help make it less unfair for him, but she told us he didn't do anything but stay in her guest room and play his instruments and go on his Xbox 360. So our group of over 20 had fun and whatnot, and I admit it was the best vacation we'd ever had as a family. We never got something so extravagant ever again, because all the adults pooled their Christmas bonuses and vacation savings together for this trip. I feel bad for my brother since we visited Disneyland, SeaWorld, and just spent the time eating out and at the beach. For a 9-year-old girl, meeting all the Disney princesses was something out of this world, and it's something I still fondly remember. Ed and our male cousins loved SeaWorld and the rides at Disney. Mobile phones weren't as prevalent back then, but we had cameras, so obviously pictures were taken. We got back and my brother was completely ice cold to every single person who went on that trip. He refused to even speak to me or Ed for weeks, even after we went back to school. Our parents really felt bad about this and hoped he would get over it, so they tried really hard to talk it through with him. Andy just called them traitorous and that he knew where we all stood now. His anger got so bad that he actually put a few holes in a few doors in the house on his bad days.
Oh no, this is a villain origin story.
But it sounds like maybe Andy already needed some guidance. It sounds like, I mean, I don't think you just go from neutral to putting holes in the wall because like you missed one trip, even though it's like apparently the trip of trips. Holes in walls. It's no one's fault. It got lost. And I think, depending on how old he is, I'm assuming he's like 14.
This is just Home Alone.
Yeah, except he's not happy.
Yeah.
Except he's really mad.
Yeah.
And he wasn't home alone. He was home with his pregnant aunt.
Yeah, this is just Home Alone, but like realistically. And this guy, everyone went to go have a good time at Disney, at SeaWorld, go eat some good food, and he just was home. Would I be holding this grudge forever?
14 years is a long time to be mad about this, for sure.
I don't know.
Whenever our parents tried to calm him down and reprimand him, he would just scream at them and tell them they have nothing on him. That became his go-to instant argument ender, even if he was in the wrong. It always came back to this trip and how he'd never be able to experience it ever. Whenever we were at family events from that point on, he'd always scream at everyone to shut up if anyone even so much as brought that trip up. He ripped up pictures we'd had printed and tore up one of my plushies from the trip. This is like guidance counselor, therapy type situations here for young Andy. He has every right to be frustrated and, you know, you did miss out and it would feel bad, but he's not processing this correctly.
This is not the way to, like, again, this is on the parents of trying to, like, make it up to him. Like, hey, we're going to make it up to you. But, like, maybe you should have told him outright, like, what you're going to do. But the kid's going to be upset. Like, kid, adult, child, he missed out, and it was due to literally, like, just crappy thing. Like, he had no control over it.
The ding-dang government lost his paperwork.
He got the short end of the stick.
Yep. He started using swear words often around us all, and even insult people in vulgar ways. Our mom had enough and gave him a slap when he insulted one of our female cousins. He called her a selfish bee in an argument where she continued pressing him after he played the left out on the vacation card. He completely snapped on us and threw the biggest freak out I'd ever seen in my life. I'm talking thrown glasses and plates, tables flipped with food on them. He ruined the day and scared a crap ton of our family, including our baby cousin, who was like 3 at that point. Where are the parents? Parents should be way more concerned about this behavior.
I was like, the anger is justified. Him lashing out like this, not justified.
He had to be restrained by some of the men in the family and carried into his room after that. And our parents got extremely worried about this behavior. Yes, thank you, parents. I never saw my brother get so angry ever in my life, and I cried like a baby when he did that. My mom, to this day, still wishes she never set him off. They tried to get him help for his anger issues, and it seemed to work when he met his therapist, which he still sees to this day some months later. After a lot of trying and different sessions with different therapists, he didn't have another outburst like that ever again, and my parents never laid a hand on any of us after that. It was common to get a spanking or a smack for most kids our age at that point if we really misbehaved or did something bad. So please don't shout abuse in the comments, and if I ever have kids, I won't be touching them like that at all. It's just different cultures. He was just never the same ever again. He had no interest in family time anymore, and he outright quit the marching band, much to my dad and grandfather's disappointment, though he still kept up the trumpet and learned guitar by himself. Music runs in the family, but my oldest was the only one who wanted to play any instruments. Andy disassociated from us in church, sitting by himself in another section, which really stung for my parents. But to pretty much everyone else, he was exactly the same. He had the aunt and her husband do his confirmation, which was really something else. It's pretty silly, but the most accurate way to describe it was like Jekyll and Hyde. Cold and hateful to anyone who was involved in the trip, but his normal cheerful self to everyone else to maintain appearances.
Grow up, man.
This guy really needs a therapist.
I mean, he has one.
He needs a different one. The one that he's got is not pushing him.
Guess what? What you put into therapy is what you get out of it. And I don't think he's putting any of that in. He's just like, I'm angry at them, but I'll be fine.
This is why the doctor-patient relationship in therapy is so important because, you know, this guy is probably a guy who needs to be pushed on his beliefs a little bit. He needs to be pushed out of his comfort zone, and he might be seeing a therapist that, I mean, you know, therapists are just people. They're not all going to be perfect, but it's like, it doesn't sound like he's being pushed in the right direction. It sounds like, if anything, the therapy is like, or maybe his therapist is pushing him to continue to be no contact, to continue to do this behavior.
I think the therapy was because of his anger and his outburst there, but I think they need family therapy.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a joint session so that
I think that's what's
he can
required
get
here.
Everyone's perspective and everyone's take. Because I really feel like, and I'm just, it's an assumption, but like, I feel like in therapy, he latched onto something that for him gave him the permission to be like this to his family, where he's like, he's justified in being this way. When it's really the only person that's hurting is you. It's also hurting your other family members, but like the person you're doing the most disservice to is yourself. There were a few dicey decisions my parents made that ruined the already strained relationship between us and him. Oh boy, I wonder what those are. Namely, letting me and my brother go abroad during school trips. When you reach grade 9, you choose 3 elective subjects to take during grades 10 through 12. This is pretty much the starting point of your career, so you have to choose wisely. He went for business, physics, and accounting since he enjoyed those and had wanted to go into fields related to those subjects. Ed and I went for 2 subjects, namely tourism and geography, respectively, since they were easy and enjoyable to us. The thing with tourism and geography is that they introduced excursions abroad for those classes, pretty much the year before my brother had matriculated. If we didn't go, our parents would have had to let us stay in school doing nothing since most teachers and students would be on said trip. So they paid for me to go to Vietnam and my brother to go to Prague. When my brother found out, he was livid, but didn't scream or anything. Our family couldn't afford to do another big Disney trip again, but they could afford to send us on smaller vacations like these. They could have sent him to do the exact same vacation alone, but he was underage. My parents offered to let him vacation on his own after he was 18, but he did not react well. He just told them it was too little too late and some other colorful things. Again, paraphrasing, what the heck's the point of doing that crap alone? You know, interesting thought. I wonder how old the brother was when they left on the trip.
I thought he was like 14.
I think I assumed. They just said that they were all under the age of 16.
Even then.
Because I wonder if he was like 9 or 8, it's like, that actually could be like a really traumatic like core memory that you end up making like accidentally. You know, it's like.
I mean, it's a core memory for sure.
Where it's like, yeah, clearly this dude's entire, you know, a huge part of this guy's personality is informed by this moment that he went through, this experience of feeling left out by his family.
He's been shaped by this, and it's the wrong shape. Again, I feel bad for him. There's so many like things here that it's just he grew up in that mindset.
Yeah, it's like at some point, you know, the onus on this I feel like is even less into his hands. It's more in the parents.
It's 100% the parents. Let's say even if he was 15. I don't think he was that old, but even if he was 15, this still, because it sounds like he's still never got like repaid for, or his stubbornness got the best of him and made him blind.
Anyway, he kept it that way all throughout high school, even if it went online, and did pretty good for himself. He managed to finish in the top 15 of the grade for his final year, which was a big deal, and he kept an A aggregate for most of his subjects. He scored a bursary for his university studies and just left to live on campus. That was pretty much the last time we saw him in a regular fashion. Literal years pass without any messages, and my parents are watching his social media like a hawk to make sure he's okay. He only speaks to his grandmas on both sides of the family and our aunt and her husband and their daughter. He meets his now wife, and they marry years later. She invites us since he doesn't want to speak to us directly. Ed and I think we were only invited at the time because our grandma was on her last legs with her cancer getting worse, and he didn't want her to feel miserable about this before she passed. So he probably invited us for her sake. We were placed in the middle of the section, which wasn't bad, I guess, and pause because that informs us that Andy's not a monster, right? He's like looking out for his sick grandma.
I know. He just has a deep, deep hatred that he has grown like, toward his family members that they had zero control over. Again, if his family members and OP were teasing him about it this entire time, which it was like, I don't think they were just like, oh, the trip was fun, but he was there in the room and he's like, you brought it up to spite me.
You know what it feels like to me? It feels like he almost never believed it was just out of anyone's hands. It feels like a part of him has always believed that part of it was on purpose or that they did it wrong. Like he definitely wouldn't have held on to it for that long.
I guarantee you he used the fuel, like his drive to like, I gotta get A's and get the heck out of here. Like I'm gonna show them all up.
Imagine he's just like, he becomes the most successful person of the family.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's what he's trying to do.
Aren't you glad we excluded you from that vacation, Andy? Look at you, you're on the Fortune 500 list. He just grinds until he has enough money to take a vacation to Florida, go to Disney World.
Go to Disney World and go to Disneyland.
We were placed in the middle of the section, which wasn't bad, I guess. What was really painful was seeing him act so nicely towards his wife's family. Since then, he showed up for our grandma's funeral, who did pass a few months ago, but he clearly hates being around us and would rather be anywhere else. And now it's an occasional dry call my mom makes to him just to check on him. The family is still feeling raw about this, and my parents keep talking about this with their siblings and our remaining grandparents. By the way, you can talk with us about literally anything every weekday at, pretty much within reason, 3 p.m. PST every weekday on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitch. All you got to do is tap our profile, and you're in the live. And before we finish this story, where do we think we could have gone right here?
I don't know. Maybe some of the parents talking to him, rather than just talking behind his back to like the aunts and uncles or what have you, or grandparents. Maybe you should have reached out to him. I know he's being stubborn, but like even when you guys got to a mature age, and you should have been like, hey man, we need to fix this. This is not right. The fact that he is completely normal.
Yeah,
with everybody else but
the
the family.
One day I just spoke my mind to my brother and said that he doesn't care about us anymore and that we should just move on from each other. I understand why he's hurt, and I think it's better if we just let this relationship fizzle out if Andy wants it to. If he gets over it, we can all chat and try to make sure we put it behind us. My mom got really sad about it, and my dad and a few others just argued with me for wanting to abandon him and that he'd come around eventually. Ed is also leaning on leaving it up to Andy to make the first move if he ever wants a relationship with us again. So yeah, am I the a-hole? Going to work, so I won't be able to add info or respond for a bit. Honestly, I don't think you're the a-hole for being like, look, it's been 14 years, man. Clearly you don't like us. I think we should just go our separate ways, all of us, until you decide you want to, be brought back in, I guess, because you just let him know that the invitation is open. Come back whenever. As of right now, clearly you don't want anything to do with us, so let's not pretend.
Let's not waste the energy and make things awkward and put you in an awkward situation, put me in an awkward situation, speaking for OP,